Welcome to the opening general session of the 85th Annual Convention of the Arkansas Municipal League. 85 years, wow, that's something. We have an outstanding convention program planned. We truly hope that this will be the best convention that you have ever attended. It's the Arkansas Municipal League, and it's an organization of all the cities in the state of Arkansas that work together and try to figure out, we all have similar issues, and we try to figure out the best way to make things happen that's best for everybody. We've got about 1,300 people here. They're here to learn. They're here to be certified municipal officials and get together and talk about how other cities handle their problems and their advantages.
I think this is the best possible way for a newly elected official to understand what their job is, understand the best practices for doing it, to be able to network with similar communities, to be able to learn all sorts of things from financial matters to human resources matters to legislative update. The list goes on and on. That is a critical part of what the league does, and I hope we continue to bolster that year in and year out so that it is the place to go for a new official and an old official alike to come get the training that they need.
We advocate for them at the state level, at the federal level. We provide them with programs and services so they can best run their cities and towns throughout the state of Arkansas, and we have a tremendous membership. This is the 85th anniversary of the Arkansas Municipal League, which means we are celebrating 85 years of service to the 500 cities and towns in the state of Arkansas. It's an incredibly exciting time. We look forward to seeing our membership. We look forward to the topics of discussion throughout the convention, and we want this to be a great success for everyone.
The case out of the United States Supreme Court overruled a case from long ago requiring essentially a business location in the state to be taxed. That's not very practical in today's world given the Amazons and Wayfairs that are out there. So the legislature recognized that it's not a new tax, it's just a fair way to do business. If you buy a pair of shoes from a vendor in Little Rock or you buy a pair of shoes from a vendor who's out of New York, you should still pay the same Arkansas sales tax. And that legislation is passed. I look for it to go and be implemented later this summer, and then hopefully we'll begin to see some very real results over the next 18 months to 2 years, I would say.
How critical is that sales tax revenue to municipalities?
It's the lifeblood, and I think that's really the critical aspect of this. It was a dwindling pool given that everyone uses their smartphones and computers to live their lives. We were missing that in this state, as were a great many other states, and this now gets us back to a level playing field, and cities and towns can survive and hopefully thrive now that that income that's been gone for so long is actually back in place.
The internet sales tax is something that the Arkansas Municipal League, as well as all the cities in the state of Arkansas, we've been advocating for that for a number of years. And this will be huge for our community. It not only takes care of fire and police protection, it just as a whole takes care of infrastructure.
Up until the internet and things like that, people had to pay a sales tax everywhere they went. And so now they're just going to be back where they originally were, and they're going to be supporting their cities to make sure that the funding that they get, the city will be able to take care of the things that need to be done inside the city.
Anytime we receive additional revenue into our stream, it's very helpful. But what it will allow us to do is to invest more heavily into our infrastructure. In the past, let's say 10 years or so, especially during that time of recession, there was always that time that there wasn't money placed into infrastructure. And now what we're seeing, especially in the Delta, is a bunch of failing infrastructure. And any time that we can, contribute money back into that, the potential gain on that would be that it reduce costs to our own residents and then still maintain a vibrant city.
What do we use sales tax for might be easier answered. What do we not use sales tax for? Just almost everything that we have in our community, sales tax impacts it greatly.
What would an increase in sales tax revenue from internet sales tax mean for your community?
Better streets, better drainage, better quality of life, parks, trail systems.
Sales tax to our community is crucial. We're a small community, And the loss of sales tax due to closures of mom and pop stores have left our city finances because they've closed and left. With online sales tax, obviously up until this point, we have not been collecting it. So that void that we have faced over the last several years as stores have closed and we've lost retail business should increase and help our community for infrastructure, fire and police protection, and things such as that.
We have been looking for dollars to invest in our fire and police, and we think that will help us give them the salaries that they deserve. It can also help us build the infrastructure. We're in the process of rising our city to a new level, raising that city up, and it can help us with that downtown infrastructure that we're working on. We're redeveloping downtown, and we also need more broadband access, and it can help with that. We have so many needs in the city, as you probably already know. We're excited about this.
I think that will be a tremendous benefit to our cities, not only just in my city, but the cities across the state, because they were talking about that injecting $20 million across the state, just that their preliminary guesses at how much that money would be. I think that'd be a tremendous lift for every city.
That's additional revenue, and it means a lot of different things to where we can fund different projects to help our citizens of what sales tax that we were missing out on before. So that's a big benefit to our entire community.
Having internet sales tax will actually make it more of an even playing field for small communities such as Altus. Whenever you have larger cities and a lot of people go from small cities to large cities to shop, we don't get the tax revenue. But when our citizens can shop online and make purchases, and then our city get the sales tax for that, that helps us out. And so that's even for everyone, no matter where you live, large or small cities, you get the sales tax. So I think online and internet sales tax is very, very fair and will help all cities.
Stevens is a small town, and we just have just 2 or 3 stores there, but people still buy from the internet, and where they wouldn't be buying in Stevens, by them buying on the internet and we receiving those taxes, that would be more income for the city.
We still have statutory home rule in this state for cities and towns, and that's a fantastic thing. Unfortunately, what is occurring, and this is a nationwide trend, hot topic items, things that are particularly politically prevalent at the time, or somebody's become irritated over something in their local community, they then will wind up seeing a bill that directly impacts local control in a negative way. And the unfortunate part of that really is that a one-size-fits-all doesn't fit. And so a statewide rule on sick leave or any of those kinds of things just doesn't work if your budget is under a sale from a lot of other things. So you may have road problems, water problems. Sick leave would not be the best way for you to spend your money, and those kinds of mandates mean that local government doesn't get to make the choices anymore, and we think that's just a bad policy.
It has proven over the years that local control works, and we know what our people want and what is best for our area of the state, and so we encourage all of our legislators at the state to leave the local control. We can take care of everything, and so what we encourage our legislators to listen to us when we go to change rules that affect who's governing our particular city.
We live in that community. That's number one. So we know all the information about our cities, and I think that it's good that you give it to the people for a vote within your community. And it's very difficult for someone outside of Jonesboro to start telling us what to do or whatever, when we realize what our needs are and how we're going to work on those and how we're going to accomplish those. So now that doesn't mean that we don't need help, don't get me wrong, but I think you always want to keep that, maintain that identity, local decisions within the local communities.
The way we look at it is that we're beholden to the citizens that elect us. We see them at the Friday night football games. We see them at the Rotary dinners. We see them at all these things. And so we are beholden to them, and they tell us, hey, we don't like this particular thing you're doing. And so we go to the city council meeting the next week and we change it. And so we're not a big fan as a municipal league of having legislators who meet 3 months every other year, trying to take back some of the local control, because it deserves to be wholly in the hands of the cities and towns.
Every town has got their own problems, and by having the home rule, we are able to take care of those problems without waiting on the state to make a move. We can handle it right there at home and handle it quickly and get it done. Where if you got to wait on the state government, well, you've got to wait until the General Assembly meets in most cases. So therefore, and by that time, everything's in chaos.
As far as local decisions on the local level, I think most things have to happen on the local level, even with that particular decision. Our local residents need to be aware of any situation, so I think on the local level, that's where most things are most important, so that they get an understanding from national, state, on down. So I think from the local level is the most important.
The home rule level is very valuable for us to make these decisions within our own community, because it gives us more autonomy.
Today's topic is our first and might be one of the most important of all this conference, is medical marijuana and the workplace. As you all know, the topic is incredibly relevant at this time in our state. The speakers at the head table will provide necessary information to effectively manage medical marijuana in the municipal workplace. It's coming, it's here, we've got to deal with it.
This, by virtue of the initiated voter process, is now an amendment to the Arkansas Constitution. So if you or your council are going to go look for, well, where's the medical marijuana law, it's not in the code. It's Amendment 98 to the Arkansas Constitution. So that makes it distinct and somewhat, more authoritative than a mere code provision. On the hierarchy of laws, obviously our Constitution is a notch above the code. So what did it do? I've heard a lot of misinformation bandied about what's the law require? How easy is it to get a marijuana card? Does it allow you? Can you be high at work? Now are you protected if you're high at work? All that sort of things. Most of the things I've heard are don't have a lot of truth to them. So we'll try to pull the curtain back today, talk about some of the myths I've heard, and demystify the law a little bit, and help everybody understand exactly what the law does. The law provides a mechanism for what the amendment calls qualifying patients to get a registry identification card. And the registry identification card is the term of art in the amendment. The Department of Health has started issuing them. They look a lot like a driver's license, and they are good for 1 year unless the doctor certifies a shorter term. They cost $50. It costs $50 to get the card from the Department of Health to get it issued. The other requirement is that you have a written certification from your physician or healthcare provider. And the written certification, the most important thing I could say about that is it is not a prescription. It is not a prescription for medical marijuana. So when you have an employee or you have a friend, someone tell you, I have a prescription for medical marijuana in Arkansas, that's incorrect. That is in the actual amendment, that the written certification is not a prescription. So what is it? It's basically the doctor or the physician, the care provider, certifies that the patient has one of the conditions that qualify for medical marijuana use. Crohn's, cancer, glaucoma, irritable bowel, fibromyalgia. It runs the gamut of various conditions, and those conditions are listed in the amendment. So the doctor certifies that their patient has the condition. The patient then takes that certification with their $50. They go to the Department of Health and they get a card. And that allows them to purchase and possess 2 ounces of marijuana. What if this person is your employee? What if this qualifying patient is a city employee? What are the rights and responsibilities of the respective parties at that point in time? Well, the amendment also contains a few employment protections. And the amendment, as passed by the voters, stated that employers could not discriminate against individuals based on their status as a cardholder, number one. So if someone just identifies themselves as a cardholder, you can't take adverse employment action against them just because of their status as a card holder. There's one exception to that we'll talk about before I'm finished. The other is that employers, on the other hand, on the other side of the coin, employers were not required to accommodate an employee being under the influence of the drug. So this is the answer to the question, can you be high at work? No, the amendment does not allow anybody to be impaired or high at work any more than they can be drunk or under the influence of prescription medication. Just to have a plan in place to know, like when you have an employee that is a patient with the marijuana card and you become aware of that, how to deal with it, what to do, what not to do, and how to maintain, like I said, to maintain a safe work environment while at the same time respecting the constitutional rights now of the employee.
House Bill 1928 by Representative Vivian Flowers. On its face, it's good because it's promoting transparency. But what this bill does is it requires all public meetings to be recorded. And you have to keep that recording on some medium that you can easily give over if somebody FOIs you. And it has to be kept for a year. It does not apply to executive sessions, and it does not apply to volunteer fire departments. The question is going to be, what is a meeting? And here's our advice. If you get together to do anything, that's a meeting, and you need to record it. So if it's a planning commission and you have 2 city council members on it, or the
Planning Commission itself.
Planning Commission itself, actually, yeah, you're right. Parks Commission, city council meeting, of course, a public safety commission, whatever you have that is a governing body, it needs to be recorded, and you need to keep it. Keep the recording handy.
I want to say to all the cities up and down the Arkansas River that have been fighting this flood, we feel your pain, and we know how devastating it's been on your cities, and so I want to send that out. I know all of us are saying, God bless you guys, all the way to the Mississippi River, from Fort Smith to the Mississippi River. We all took a pretty big beating. And I know all of us will try to help you. So if y'all need something from other cities that aren't involved in the flood, I'm sure all you got to do is ask, right? Are we hearing that? How about that?
For Fort Smith, where I'm from, this was the most devastating flood we've had since 1945. We actually broke the record. It was originally 38 feet, and now it's at 42 feet. So we had over a 500-year flood plain that hit Fort Smith. So we had devastation throughout the northern part and the eastern part of our city. Many houses were devastated. Many of our park systems were devastated at the time.
Tell us, what kind of assistance did you get from the Arkansas Municipal League?
The Municipal League came through, and they're helping us with doing our property and insurance for our municipal side. They came in, they've already done an assessment of our city buildings that got hit. We've had some parks that got hit, some pump stations that got hit. So they've been really helpful, and it's glad that they came on board. They still got to make some more visits as the waters continue to recede. We're finding more issues that we didn't know that we had. So it's going to be an ongoing thing that will take us a couple months to get through the process.
In 2017, Dr. Rick Rigsby delivered one of the most passionate speeches ever heard. More than 200 million people worldwide viewed the speech in a video that went viral in just a matter of days.
There is an article, look it up if you don't believe me, an article called Death Spiral. What does Sears, your mall, and your church have in common? Is anybody interested? They're becoming extinct because they're not keeping up with the times. 6 out of 10 millennials are leaving the church and not coming back. Sears is losing customers at such a record pace, they have filed for bankruptcy and they're closing stores. Sears, once the citadel of American consumption, is now extinct. The church, once the centerpiece of American society, is going by the wayside. Why? Because we're not growing, we're leaning backwards. And when you lean backwards, entropy sets in. And when entropy sets in, you become irrelevant. You don't believe me? Ask Nokia. Nokia used to lead 20 years ago in terms of the cell phone. Now, a different story. You don't believe me? Ask Blockbuster. And I'm sure you know the story. They had the chance, but they said no. The guy starts his own company called Netflix. Perhaps you've heard of it. What's the point? Look up. Elected officials, representatives of different municipalities, businesses, and churches. If you don't adapt to change, you're going to be left behind. So we might want to stop complaining about that which we don't know and start learning some new stuff. I like y'all. 21st century leader requires an adapt to change, requires expertise in human capital, not just financial capital. That 21st century leader must master emotional intelligence, not just economic intelligence. You must collaborate with others, not just control others. You must work through networks, cross-functional relationships, not just work through hierarchies. Here's the bottom line. Everybody say, I'm listening. That 21st century leader must align people through meaning and purpose, not just structures and spreadsheets. They must rely on emotional and relational aptitude, not just technical and financial expertise. And here's the big one. They must build leadership in others, rather just getting people to follow them. The Arkansas Municipal League is vital. It is critical. The Municipal League, that represents the people's representative, the representative before state and federal government, which means that the taxpayers benefit when their leaders are their absolute very best. Here was my message. Are you doing everything you can to grow your influence? Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. You're representing the people in towns and communities all throughout Arkansas. The best way that you can represent them is to be the absolute best leader that you can be. How can you be the best leader? Grow your influence in such a way that makes an impact in front of those state and federal authorities so that you can come back to your towns and communities and cities and serve to the highest level of excellence.
Arkansas has about 740 water systems. There's only one that serves 100,000 people. That's my water system, Central Arkansas Water. This is one of my bosses right here, okay? But 71% serve less than 2,500 people. And I'm guessing that if you're a mayor in a community that's in that area, you're struggling. You're struggling for a lot of reasons, and we're going to talk about them here in a minute, but you're struggling, and private equity knows that. Okay? So here's just some quotes out of some different publications about what investors should be looking at. And it's, water is one of the most appealing long-term investments. Barron's Magazine. There's not a financial house in the United States that doesn't read Barron's Magazine every day, and it tells them, go out and invest in water. All right? There's a lot of words up there, okay? But there's a lot of money chasing small water systems. And I say small because look down at that fourth bullet point. It says Aqua America has completed 380 acquisitions. All right? Last year they acquired 5 systems with 13,000 customers total. So they're not chasing the Central Arkansas Waters of the world. All right? They're chasing the small systems because of the amen, brother, I got earlier. You know it, that you're struggling and you're having problems staying in compliance, keeping workers, making sure you can keep the systems operating. And they're looking, saying, hey, I can help you. All right? But remember this, their purpose is return on capital. They have investors, and their purpose is, how do we get them a return? Their purpose is not customer service. Their purpose is not growing your community unless it means that they're growing your system, all right, so that they can have more customers. Their purpose is return on capital. Just give you an example. Here's just some rates I pulled for the areas around me. The reason Pine Bluff's down there, Pine Bluff's private. And there's a rate filing that's been made where that's the green that's on there. Atlanta privatized. They were having problems. They were having huge problems. They had 40% water loss, all right? That meant of every 1,000 gallons they produced, 400 was going somewhere. They weren't selling it. They weren't recouping that cost through their meters, all right? So they said, oh, we're going to privatize. That'll make it all work better. 4 years later, they said, hey, we need it back. It's not working. You're not working for us, all right? You're not working for our citizens. Fort Wayne, Indiana paid $67 million to take over 2 private entities, but the biggest problem, they fought about it in court for 13 years. Okay? Missoula, Montana, all right? They wanted to get ownership back, $88.6 million. Remember, it's not the value of the assets in the ground, it's the value of the cash flow. Guaranteed return. Okay? Payson, they had a 52% rate hike. Now, I can't tell you that maybe they needed a 52% rate hike. All right? Because the rates had been held so artificially low and that they needed to pay for the improvements. All right? But there needs to be public discussion about it. There needs to be buy-in with it. There needs to be an open forum as to what's going on so that people understand what's getting ready to happen and why. Okay? Mooresville tried to buy their system and they offered the water utility $9 million, which is about 6x what they got paid for it when they sold it. All right? But the judge said, well, that's fine, but it's worth more than $9 million. It's worth $20 million. And if you want it, you're going to have to pay the water utility $20 million. And that city of 10,000 people just couldn't afford it. 12% of all the water systems in the United States are private, and the trend that we're seeing right now is that cities that went sold out to a private entity at one time are now trying to take those water systems back and turn them back into public systems.
When I address this topic with you, I want to talk to you more, though, as policymakers, as the leaders in your community who weigh out what your approach should be to small cell technology. Small cell is touted as the next solution to cell phone connectivity. When you think about how does data flow back and forth between that computer I carry around in my pocket and the publicly available internet, it has to use a wireless receiver, right? It has to communicate back and forth. While we're doing this kind of small cell build out, it's not really to put 5G in place today, it's to put infrastructure in place so that when 5G is developed, it will have the locations to be installed and it will be ready for that connectivity. That's what it's intended for. Millions of small cell devices across the United States are going to have to be installed to make 5G work. In response to that demand, FCC passed 2 orders last year. One was in September of 2018 that simply stated no moratoriums on small cells. Local government cannot establish a moratorium. So let me just save you the question to your city attorney. When you say, hey, I've got an idea, can we have a moratorium on small cell? The answer is no. You cannot have a moratorium on small cell, right? You've been federally preempted by the August order. So a second order came out in September. It was very sweeping. It was broad. It was sweeping that preempted local authority. And in many ways, not only do small cells have the right to be placed in the right-of-way, but they have the right to be attached to property that you own in the right-of-way. Poles, buildings that extend into the right-of-way, bus benches in the right-of-way, signs in the right-of-way. You can have aesthetic rules. You can make rules about what these things look like in your community, okay? They've got to be reasonable, which means they're technically feasible. It can be done. You can't dictate that an antenna has to fit in a coffee can size concealment when there's really no way to conceal it within something that size. And it has to be based on a valid public interest. To communicate first with your citizens and talk to them about what's going on. That 5G is important. It allows us to have better connectivity, you know, for our businesses, with social interaction, For entertainment purposes, it just keeps you better connected. But at the same time, there are aesthetic concerns. What do these devices look like? And there are co-location concerns because you have to think about your infrastructure. And how do we protect that? And how do we balance those interests? So think about that locally. Have the conversation with the citizens in your community about what's best to serve your citizens, and then have the conversation with the telecoms as well. You can tell them, hey, we've met with our citizens, we've talked to them about what we want to see here and how can we accommodate those interests. And I think you'll find at least the more professional entities, they're going to be engaging with you, and they're going to try to accommodate your interests.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you the 46th Governor of Arkansas, Governor Asa Hutchinson.
I want to congratulate the Municipal League on what I think was a pretty good legislative session for you. You ought to be very happy with the fact that we did pass a highway bill that you supported that was historic in proportion and that will make a difference for your budgets. We were able to maintain local control, and that's something that I measure. Ever since my dad was the mayor of Sulphur Springs, Arkansas, population 400, I have been mindful of the importance of local control, and that's something that we measure, we look at as the bills are passed, and I appreciate your advocacy for your local municipality and the decision making that you can make. We look at the legislative session, and we passed a historic highway funding bill. And soon, this year, this fall, you'll start receiving some of the benefits of that because 15% of that goes to our cities. And as we look into the future, and currently you're getting 15% of the proceeds of the half-cent sales tax, we're asking the voters in November of 2020 to extend that into the future. We need your support and help in making sure the voters are educated about that extension and the difference that it will make in your communities if you had to lose that revenue streams for your roads, for your streets that are so critical to the development and growth of your community. And so I will seek your help in that regard.
How important our mayors are, our municipal governments. I believe in government serving best that's close to the people, and our mayors have really been under a struggle with the flooding that we've had along the Arkansas River, and they've been a great partner with us in trying to meet the needs of our citizens. Whenever you look at our levee system, many of them are built by the Corps of Engineers but maintained by local levee districts. We've got to do a better job of our local levee districts keeping the levees properly maintained for this type of flooding. Secondly, we've got some breaches in it that's going to require some rebuilding. It's going to require some additional funding. All of that we're looking into. We'll have some more announcements about that down the road.
Director of the Arkansas Heritage Sites at Arkansas State University, Dr. Hawkins, please come forward.
I'm very surprised and very honored, but I also think it's very fitting that this comes as I'm about to retire, because it was about 25 years ago that I started working with a number of mayors in eastern Arkansas on trying to get a national scenic byway so that we could tap into some Federal Highway Administration money and do some projects, and that led to all the other things that I'm doing now, so it's kind of come full circle.
Our workshop today dealt with bringing businesses to town. How do you get a new business to come to town? And there are a number of things, including some recent legislation, that gives cities some tools that they didn't have before. So use that tool, but before you use that tool, have some planning. What does your community want? What could your community afford to bring to town if you were going to use some of the incentives that state government, state constitution now provides?
Our workshop today dealt with the importance of training for city municipal employees. It's important because we believe that well-trained city officials will avoid lawsuits, will be better equipped to provide excellent customer service and city services, and be great caretakers of city funds.
What we talked about and what we've been talking about is really the needs of our residents. That's my friend Bobby. I met him at a basketball game. Bobby talked about the fact that he was being bullied at school. And, I asked him, I said, well, did you tell a teacher? Have you talked to your mom? And gave him some suggestions about how to deal with that. Now, here's the thing. I had never seen Bobby before in my life. But because I was the mayor, because you're a member of the council, because you're the mayor, because you're the park superintendent, people like Bobby, children like Bobby, trust us to know how to make things better. And so when I talk about loving our city, it's really about loving and embracing our residents and giving them a sense of respite from us, not just to take care of potholes, that's important, not just to pick up the garbage, Lord knows that's important, and not just to address public safety, but my theory is that when they feel a connection with us, when they feel a connection with the community, then they are more likely to volunteer to assist young folks like Bobby as mentors, as those who lead in the community, so that you can go about the daily business of the city. I would suggest to you, it's all about conveying the concept of love and loving their cities to your residents. And so, as I said earlier, this is the summer of love. It's the summer where we're asking folks to have a campaign in their cities, to encourage residents to talk about and post what they love about their cities. What do you love about Jonesboro? What do you love about North Little Rock? What do you love about all of the cities in Arkansas? And as you do that, at NLC, we have developed customized logos to make it easier for you to use these in social media and other forms of media. So if it's a town, if it's a city, if it's another form of municipality, that's okay. We have you covered. My message today was the importance of loving our cities, loving our residents, and engendering that love for that residents can have and do have for our cities. So often we're focused on budget and data, and while all of that is important, we also understand that there are intrinsic things that we really want our residents to understand about their cities, about loving their cities, about volunteering, about civic engagement, so that we can get everyone involved in the city, other than when it's a problem with garbage or a problem with potholes or something like that. We want residents to be a part of the fabric of their communities.
How many of you have revised either your sign ordinance or your panhandling ordinance since 2015? Show of hands. Not very many. Okay, then this is a target-rich environment for us. If you have not revised your sign ordinance or your panhandling ordinance since 2015, I'm going to guess for you that big parts of it are unconstitutional. That ought to concern you.
Supreme Court case in 2015 that really changed the way courts and therefore municipalities look at the way they are regulating free speech issues. So just as a basic overview, courts review very closely any attempt by a government entity to regulate the speech of its people. So in this case that came in front of the Supreme Court, the issue was how signs were being regulated. So the sign ordinance. Show of hands, how many of y'all know how your municipality regulates its signs?
Pretty good smattering.
Yep. And in this case, the town of Gilbert actually regulated through a permitting process, which I think most towns and cities are comfortable with. The permitting process had exceptions, though. There were 23 different types of signs for various things that didn't require a permit. The problem really was that depending on what kind of sign you were, and I'm not talking about flags versus poles, but the message that you were conveying, farmers markets on Saturday mornings, political signs, ideology signs, and temporary signs, you had different regulations. So different sizes that were allowed, different times that the sign could be up. And what the court found was this was regulating a sign based on the content of its message. But this court case said it doesn't really matter what your intentions are. It doesn't matter if you're aiming your regulation at a specific group or a group that wishes to put up a sign or a specific message. If you are regulating the sign based on what the sign says, regardless of who's saying it, you are regulating it based on its content, and we can't do that. So that was the big change in 2015. So if you can't do that, how do you properly regulate signs? There's still going to be an issue as to what signs are allowed, when and where. And the key from this case and moving forward, and you'll hear us say repeatedly, is time, place, and manner restrictions. Speech can be regulated based not on who's saying what or what is being said, but based on what time it can be said, what times the signs can be up if they're temporary signs, the places they may be posted, and the manner. This is size, type of material, other things like that. They need to take a deep look into the ordinances they already have on the books, make sure those ordinances are in line with the Supreme Court rulings that came out in 2015, and then work with their staff to try and either redraft or tweak the ordinances that aren't in line currently with the Supreme Court's ruling.
This program is designed to stimulate investors to invest in underserved areas, and so we tried to take all that into consideration when we nominated those census tracts. So there's 85 in the state of Arkansas that are opportunity zones, and there's several areas that didn't get an opportunity zone, and my response to that is, to those areas that did get an opportunity zone, great. It's another tool in your tool belt, but it is not the only thing that's out there. The big value of opportunity zones is when you use it, the benefits of those, and you can stack them together with other kinds of incentives to make the return on investment for investors feel right for them and eligible for their investment. They're all looking for their return.
Opportunity zone is a federal incentive to help development in lower income areas, of which there's 85 in Arkansas. Those can be packaged with other state and local incentives for certain types of projects. It's not a cure-all, and it has to be managed properly, but it can make the difference on pretty good deals.
Give us an example of how this could be utilized by municipalities across the state of Arkansas.
If they identify their priority projects for, say, a redevelopment project near downtown, for example, it can be a factor in helping a developer decide to do that project in their community.
Now it's my honor and privilege to present to you the new league officers for 2019-2020. Vice President District 1 is Mayor Paul Wellenberger. Now, Paul wasn't able to be here. He had to leave a little early today because he is attending a ribbon cutting for their brand new hotel in Fairfield Bay. So that's a pretty good excuse, no doubt. Vice President District 2, Mayor Alan Loring. It's not mayor, is it? City council member. That's it. Wrightsville, right here. The next on my right is Mayor John Mark Turner from Siloam Springs, Vice President District 3. And now Vice President District 4 is Mayor Parnell Vann from Magnolia. And your first Vice President, Mayor Gary Baxter from Mulberry. Gary. I guess it's time now for me to begin my speech. I really want to cover several things that are kind of interesting to me and to look back over the past 12 months. You know, one thing that I found out that is very important, that as mayors and city council members, we're here just for a little bit of time. And it's our responsibility to train those that are going to take our place. You know, you can just do so much in your 8 years as me, or 12 years, or 30 years, but you're going to have to hand it off to somebody else. So I encourage you to pay attention to that. You know, remember last year at this time, I talked about trying to get the younger generation involved, and that's why. We're going to have to pass this torch. We can't be mayor forever. And so concentrate on that. You know, I've challenged, where's Jonas? Is Jonas here? And Tyler Denton. Where's Tyler from Osceola? I challenged both of them. They're both young. Yeah, there he is right there. I said, you know, I know Harold's going to continue that passion of trying to get younger people involved, but I challenge those guys to continue to push forward. Local control. I spent a tremendous amount of time on your behalf over at the state capitol, and I realized at that point in time that there are legislators out there that want to take our local control away from us bit by bit. And, you know, local control is a proven governed success. You know, we know what our people need. You know, the people in Mulberry don't need the same thing as probably the people in North Little Rock or Lake Village and Fayetteville. And so we need to be able to self-govern. The reason I'm saying that is, you know, we have, you know, some wonderful legislators, but we have some that don't have any experience in municipal government and don't understand the challenges that we have at a local level. So what I want to encourage you as I go out of office is pay attention to your legislators, and I encourage you to try to run for those positions. If we can get more people with municipal government experience at the state capitol, we won't have to fight that local control. So I challenge you to do that, and I promise you that if I know that there's a mayor or a city council member out there that's running for office, I will come to your city and I will help you, because we've got to have more municipal people at the state level. You know, it's come time for me to pass the torch on to Mayor Perrin, and I know that he spent the last year as our first vice president diligently preparing for the task of president. So I have no second guesses on that he will do us a wonderful job.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to thank my Lord and Savior for allowing me to serve you all as president in this coming year. Number two, I wish that my lovely bride of 50 years, my soulmate, my partner, my wife of my 2 children, Susan could be here today, but she's had some medical issues, and I certainly hope that you will continue to keep her in your prayers and your thoughts. So again, I know that she would really enjoy being here and getting to see everyone. The second thing is I want to say is, and it's been said before, but I'll tell you, the Arkansas Municipal League, and I'm an old ex-banker and retired, but and was in the association, but this association is absolutely incredible for what all they provide to us. When I became mayor and serving 15 years on the council, but then when you sit in that mayor's chair, it's a whole different deal. And then you say, what do I do? And everybody goes home, you're still sitting there. Okay, so and what you do is you pick up the phone and you start calling the Municipal League because they have the answers to those things. And I know that Mark has said this many times, and that is that we are you, you are us. In other words, we're all together in this deal. And I just want to say thank you, and for the great staff that we have here, and I look forward to working with them, with Sheila, and with Whitney, and with Cindy, and Mark, and all of those. And as long as they will provide me with desserts, I will be here. But anyway, I just want to say thank you so much. You know, I think some of the presidents each year try to probably pick a theme or something that they would like to maybe just talk about just briefly that maybe could help all of us in the state of Arkansas and our cities, irregardless of the size of your city. And I've said this before, is that you cannot run a city on sales tax alone. No way. Even if you have grants and you have a grants division, grants are tightening up. The percentage and match on those grants are, again, larger for us to come up with the money to do that. And so one of the things that we have done in Jonesboro is we call it the public-private partnerships. And public-private partnerships is nothing more than you going out into your community and to take your staff with you and explain to what I call the stakeholders within your city that what is going on in your city and what is the cost of running your city. And I don't think, and it was hard for me to believe, that the people didn't realize how much it cost for our city to run. And when I talked to hospital administrators, business people, small business owners, they had no idea or no conception of what it costs to run a city. And so what I asked them is that while I'm here in explaining this to you, is I would like to ask you a question. Is what do you have for me that you could help the city of Jonesboro? And from that, we have built a tremendous program in Jonesboro to get our partners and our stakeholders. And I don't know if it's up on the screen or not. Do we have just one quick deal? Yeah, there you go. When I give my state of the city, each year I tell them that there's no way that we can exist without our public-private partnerships. And you can just see a few of those on this screen here, and that's everything from the federal, the state, local, county, all of those things that we work with in Jonesboro. We do that through partnerships. We could not do for our people on my budget what we have on our sales tax and our state turnback. Absolutely no way. We could not have built a 3.2-mile walking trail without the help of the Arkansas Highway Department, the Blue and U, the Arkansas Parks and Tourism. All of those people built that deal. A $3.2 million Miracle League field to allow children to play when they stood and sat in the stands and watched their brothers or sisters play. Now they're playing. And that was all paid, $3.2 million, and the city only put $100,000 in that program. So what I'm saying is this, is that go back to your communities and explain to your people, okay, in your community, hey, I need your help. We're in this thing together. There's no question about that. And we'll certainly provide those services. You know, the key to this, there's not 1 second or not 1 minute that you don't provide service to your citizens. 911, fire, police, all of those things that we do. But you know, when I start telling them, you know, to run the the police department is approximately $10 million a year. They go, do what? $10 million a year. We, last year, approved 17 new subdivisions. That's great. However, one of those subdivisions is going to have 2,500 homes in that. And when we approved that, what I was doing is sitting in that chair that night of thinking, another garbage truck, 2 more employees, retirement plan, FICA, all those things that we had to come up with in order to provide those services to those people. And you want to do that, and I understand that. So again, I challenge you to go back and do that, and you'll be amazed of the people that will start writing you checks and start helping you in your community because they live there.
I'm a newly elected mayor here at Forest City, Arkansas, and just meeting a lot of different people and the relationships, and also just being involved in the street aid and state aid program in there, and how we can help with apply for funding to help for some of our roads back in Forest City, Arkansas.
The training, the guidance, the help, the legal counsel, everything that they do is just a tremendous asset for the cities. Just the insurance programs and things that they have saves us a tremendous amount of money just during the year. But the training, the working together, helping you to collaborate with each other, it's invaluable. It's really been good.
Valuable. I've been coming for several years now, and you learn a little bit something different every year, so it's been very valuable.
I was elected to the city council at about 25 years old, and I'm now the mayor, and I'm 35 years old. And to me, it's critical for people from my generation to be involved in local service and local public service because we are the future. And if we're raising our kids and our families in these cities and towns, and it's great that we can have such an impact on it. Local government is really where the rubber meets the road. That's where things happen. So the Municipal League has been really great. Mayor Smith has been really great about encouraging my generation to get involved, and we've got a lot of younger people involved, and so hopefully that'll continue.
The exposure that I have been privileged enough to experience over the last year is invaluable. It's allowed me to get to know a lot of mayors that I probably otherwise wouldn't have had a chance to get to know, and it's given me an opportunity to be a voice for the league and for both small and large cities at the Capitol.
I'm a newly elected official. My name's April Broderick. This is my first year to be at the AML convention. And I wanted to work with the community that I grew up in and that I love so much. So that was kind of what spurred me on to get involved.
I think we cover a range of topics from legal, social, financial, leadership topics from experts in the field that help us learn things and take them home to our communities and then put them into practice in our local communities.
It's more of a hands-on. If everybody can get together, you bring back more knowledge to your city, and it saves the taxpayers money.
It's incredibly important. We've had 12 representatives from OCL here. We think it's that important that we brought 12 of our city council members and our department heads here.
Well, being on the advisory council, of course, gives us an insight on what's happening statewide and what the Municipal League's doing. We can take that back to our cities, but also it gives our cities a voice, more of a voice, on the state level through the Municipal League by being a part of the advisory council. I'm serving my 9th year on the advisory council for First Class Cities, and I've enjoyed it and considered it an honor to be a part of it.
I think this should be a part of a natural orientation that we have to manipulate our ability to navigate the municipal government system. I think it's helpful to have exposure to the different resources that the league provides for us, and I determined right away that it was a good place for me to call anytime I had a question or was trying to locate information that would help me make decisions on city ordinances.
We have problems with infrastructure, and so I need grants and funding and that kind of thing I'm really interested in. We're also minus a city clerk at the moment, so I need to go to those meetings and find out exactly how to do what they do until we fill that position.
My favorite thing about being able to help local citizens and local government is that it really, really makes me happy to help people achieve their goals. In other words, A community can decide what they really want to have happen in their community, whether it be a swimming pool or a community center or a new road. And a city manager is able to put together the framework in which they're able to achieve that goal and accomplish what they want to do as a community. And that makes me really feel good, like I've really done something at the end of the day that is important for the world.
It's fantastic. I mean, there are smiles, there are people talking about all kinds of issues, and I think there's a very genuine camaraderie with city officials around the state, and I think that makes a big difference in what citizens see out of their local government.
The last 3 days of the 85th Convention have been wonderful. It has been a tremendous success, and I do believe that our membership feels very armed, well armed with the information we provided them so they can go back home and serve their citizens.
Call the league. Get on our website. Look at get on our social media presence. There's if you're interested, all you got to do is pick your smartphone up, Google Arkansas Municipal League, and there's more information than you'll ever want to read.